Interesting, huh? The Switch. I just think it's a pretty incredible idea that Nintendo came up with. And last week we had a little skit, and probably next week we'll have a little skit. Today I just felt like I wanted to be Mario. You know, Mario always seems to win. And I like to win. Anybody here like to lose? There's a couple of you that think you like to lose. Okay, good. I'll play you. I want to win. So, Mario wins, and you know, that's always a big deal, right? Everybody wants to be Mario, or maybe Luigi, right? Right? Some of you play this game. Some of you are my age. Some of you have kids my kids' age. Maybe not. Okay, we'll move on. So today we're looking at this concept again of the Nintendo Switch. And I want to just kind of take a couple minutes to bring everybody up to speed. You see, the Nintendo Switch is a video gaming system that works in 3 different ways. It can connect to your TV to create a full access game for the entire family. It can also be used as a tabletop game for a smaller group of people to enjoy, right? Or it can be a handheld game that can be taken with you as a personal gaming system to play wherever you go. Now I think it's really neat because this past week, I started this series on the Switch last week. I've already confessed to all of you who were here last week, you know that I've never played a Nintendo Switch. I'm not really a gamer. I did play the Nintendo, period, Nintendo, with my son, who's now 30, and so, you know, so I did play some of that, but I have not been a gamer for a long time. But this idea, this concept, it works well for us who follow the teachings of Christ because we follow the same sort of idea. We gather together as a congregation to worship our Lord as a complete body. We gather in smaller groups. And we call our groups the lift groups, which means living intentionally, big word there, intentionally fit together. So that we can help us to better connect and grow stronger in our faith, right? That's the idea of this smaller group. And we take our faith and our belief with us everywhere we go. We take it so that we can share it and encourage others who are also following Christ. Correct? Okay, I need some people to talk to me today, okay? Don't let me down out there. I need to know you're with me. Because last week I was told nobody went to sleep. Exciting, right? I must have done something good. I don't know. So as I consider this through the message today, this idea of this Nintendo Switch or this big group, small group, take it with you mentality, I'm quickly excited about what God is showing us. You see, today I'm going to be looking at one of the most incredible prophets recorded in the Bible, Elijah. Elijah, he did many unbelievable things as he spoke to a corrupt people and a corrupt king of Israel. He was given signs, miraculous signs, that proved his connection to the one true God. And he did things like making oil and grain last when it should have run out long before it did. If you don't know these stories, you can look them all up in 1 Kings. Most of them right around 17. But in that case, a widow he saw was going home to make her last meal. And he said, you know what? Make me a cake first. What? Yeah, make me a cake first, and I promise you will not run out. And she didn't run out. He brought a diseased boy back to life. Somebody who had passed. He died. He was gone. And I did that last time I preached on Elijah. I called him Isaiah through the whole thing. I'm going to work really hard not to do that. So correct me if I do it wrong. But Elijah, he was able to bring this boy back to life. He spoke into effect a 3-year drought. Have any of you ever gone through a drought? I bet it wasn't 3 years. Just a short time, and they put our water restrictions on here, right? Don't use the water. You can't wash your car anymore. You can't water your lawn. 3 years of no water? But the two things that I want to focus on today, to me at least, seem to be the most incredible of his accomplishments. First, after speaking this drought into existence, Elijah left Israel. And he just seems to disappear. The king of the day, his name was Ahab, he sent people all over the place looking for Elijah Elijah. See, I'm calling the wrong name and I'm confused myself. Because he wanted to force him to pray for rain. You ever try forcing God to do something? I have. I'll tell you that I have. I had great ideas. I still have great ideas in my mind. And I take them to God and I say, God, wouldn't this be great? Shouldn't we do this? And he always says, Ed, sit down. I got this. I really don't need your help. Well, King Ahab had a great idea. He was going to force Elijah to pray for rain. But he couldn't find him anywhere. And then one day, King Ahab has another prophet. His name's Obadiah. And he has him go with him, and they go out to find some grass for the horses to eat. Because it hasn't rained for 3 years. There's not a whole lot of grassland. There's not a whole lot of pasture. And Obadiah runs into Elijah. And Elijah tells him to go and tell the king that he's there to meet him. Well, the first thing Obadiah says, I thought you liked me. Like you're sending me to my death. Elijah says, no, go tell the king, I really am here and I want to meet with him. And he tells him to meet him in 1 Kings chapter 18, verses 17 through 20. And this is where we read, when Ahab saw him, he exclaimed, so is it really you troublemaker of Israel? You ever been called a troublemaker? I've been called a troublemaker. I have made no trouble for Israel, Elijah replied. You and your family are the troublemakers, for you have refused to obey the commands of the Lord and have worshipped the images of Baal instead. Now, summon all Israel to join me at Mount Carmel, along with the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah, who are supported by Jezebel. So Ahab summoned all the people of Israel and the prophets to Mount Carmel. This story, it continues with a great showdown between the prophets of Baal and the one true God. And there's 450 prophets of Baal. We're going to just leave the 400 of prophets of Asherah out of this and just 450 prophets of Baal. That's kind of a lot, right? You could probably tell that this isn't a fair fight. 450 to 1. But of course, the one, when he's standing with God, obviously, I said it's not a fair fight. Those 450 really didn't stand a chance. Now, I thought really hard about trying to explain God in this. I actually spent a couple days kind of figuring, how can I put this God to you so that you'll understand what this is all about. And And I just felt like, I need to just let it be. God is God. He just is. He is God, and he came to show his power when Elijah prayed to him. What I think is most important for us to see in this showdown of 450 to 1 isn't really that it isn't really a fair fight. Because actually, 10,000 to 1 isn't a fair fight when God is on the side of one. You can read multiple places throughout the Old Testament. And again, I started to list these and I thought, no, I'm always challenging you guys to read your Bible. So this would be a good chance. You can find all kinds of places throughout the Old Testament where God fought for his people. And in this case, he didn't. I mean, really, God didn't really fight for his people in this case. He just showed his power in a way that removed all doubt of his existence. I mean, can you imagine being in the audience on Mount Carmel? If I were there, I'd be watching the prophets and the priests of Baal and the priests of Asherah. They'd be dancing around, right? They're dancing around, they're calling out to these gods to show their power. I heard a sermon once about how their actions kind of reminded us of some of the things that we see today when people get together and they just kind of go crazy. But they were doing a lot of crazy things. And I feel like this thing that we were watching would kind of get old. I mean, can you imagine sitting there for hours, watching them dance around and cut themselves and yell out? And Elijah, he's a good sport because he sits over on the side and he just yells out to them, "Hey, call a little louder, maybe you went to lunch." Right? He mocks them, he's making fun of them. And then when we're so bored and unimpressed with these gods and their lack of interest or whatever we want to think it is, right at that point, Elijah gets up and walks to his prepared sacrifice. Now, I don't know about you, but I would expect the people weren't real interested in what he was doing right then. I feel like they thought, well, here we go again. We're going to watch another great prophet do pretty much nothing and have no results. And I don't get it. But then Elijah, he has his servants go and get some water and pour it all over his sacrifice. I wonder, doesn't he know that water puts out fire? I mean, don't you think he probably isn't thinking here, right? Water puts out fire. He wants to have fire come from his God and consume his sacrifice, and he's filling it up with water. He does this to the point that he actually completely drenches, maybe even waterlogs, his whole sacrifice. Even to the point that the water is flowing off the altar and into the ditch that he dug around it. I don't know about you, but this all seems pretty crazy to me. And then, after just a short prayer, all of a sudden, fire falls from the sky and cleans up Elijah's sacrifice. It even seems to drink up the water that he just had them pour all over it. Well, probably unlike most of us, those people are awake now. Right? I mean, think about it. I just watched this crazy guy get up, have his servants pour water all over the sacrifice. He says, "Hey guys, will you show yourself?" And God's like, none of us would be sitting quiet then. We couldn't sit quiet then. Well, since they're so awake, and now they are ready to hear whatever it is Elijah's going to tell them, he tells them to trap every one of those proven false prophets and kill them. And that's what they do. Of course, you just witness that, you're going to do whatever the guy says. Now, I want you to catch this switch. Elijah should be on a mountaintop experience after this kind of victory, right? Wouldn't you think, oh man, my God just showed up. He just proved everybody else wrong. I'd say he was feeling pretty good about his part in this game. And just a thought, but I bet some of those children who were up here for our caravan badge awards were probably feeling pretty completed, pretty excited about the badges that they were able to earn. They worked hard. And God showed up multiple times over this last year as they earned their badges. The real point is that if we're watching, we'll see a lot of God-given victories. Amen. They're everywhere. Now after Elijah's victory, he tells his servant to go and look at the sky because it's going to rain. Remember, it hasn't rained for like 3 years. And here's that switch. King Ahab tells his wife, Queen Jezebel, about the destruction of all her God's prophets and priests. And Jezebel swears to kill Elijah by this time the next day. I don't know about you, but to me this switch seems crazy. I mean, Elijah just prayed to God, and he watched him totally destroy well over 800 prophets, prominent people, who came from the queen's Jezebel, her leadership team. Right? I mean, there are her gods and her prophets and her priests, and he just destroyed them all. She says, by this time tomorrow, I swear you will be dead. And he runs and hides. That's a crazy switch to me. Have you ever thought that you were being strong when deep inside you were really scared to death? I guess that would be like that outer shell is showing something great, but inside you're just a puddle of mud. You're just kind of, ugh. I'd say this happened to me a few times. See, when I first answered the call of God on my life, it was pretty easy. I know that doesn't sound right, but it really was. It was pretty easy because I've shared some of these trickeries with you before, but that's just how it was. God used people to trick me into doing things. He tricked me into going to take my wife to this revival, and there I hear the gospel and end up giving my life to Christ. I wasn't planning to do that. And then this kid in the back who should have said, no, you can't do these things, instead said, why don't you just try it and see what God does? And God like transformed me. He transformed me. He empowered me. You know what I'm going to say next, right? And he forever changed me. Forever changed me. So I was tricked into a lot of things. And here's the deal. So this idea of going into ministry, a friend of mine asked if I would help him start a youth group, sort of, in our church. All he wanted to do was get together once every month or two, have like a little outing, take them to a park or do an overnight or something like that. I was young and dumb, and I said, yeah, sure, I could do that. I could help with that. And it wasn't long after we started doing that Pastor Bob, that was our pastor's name, he came to us and he's like, hey guys, why don't you think about starting something every week? Like, you know, on Wednesday night, seemed ideal to us, we're already there. On Wednesday night, maybe just gather the kids together and
do a little Bible study, talk to him a little bit about Jesus and how he changed your life. And, and my friend was like, oh man, Pastor Bob, I'd love to do that, but I don't have time right now. He was in school, he was doing some things with work, and anyway, he didn't have a lot of time that he could just dedicate and say, yes, I will do this every week. So I said I would. And so we started our first youth group at that church that I'm aware of. And after a while, Pastor Bob came to me and he said, hey, they're having this training day. It's for our district. And since you're leading the teenagers anyway, why don't you go with me? Okay, I can do that. They had some kind of a deal where I don't know why it was always the women, but I didn't do crafts, so maybe that's why. But they had this thing where I think they called it make it, take it. Does that sound right? Looking at the two women that I know were involved in that, okay? So I know they went to this place and they did all these crafts things for like Sunday school, Bible schools, and all these things for children's ministry. And while they were doing that, to get us all to go along, they would do these seminars. And I went to a seminar. And Pastor Ron was leading a seminar. And he was a youth pastor at a big church on our district. And while he was speaking, I have no idea what he talked about, by the way. I'm really good at that part. But while he was speaking, God said, hey, I want you to do what he's doing. You talking to me? No, I'm listening. Be quiet. He says, I want you to do what he's doing. I'm like, you want me to lead seminars? I don't get it. So I started asking some wise friends of mine what I should be doing. And they said, well, why don't you get into the Bible, listen to the Word, and find out what God has for you. What is he saying? And as I read, God started bringing things to light. And 1 Corinthians chapter 9 jumped out at me one day. And I found myself just doing ministry before I ever realized what doing ministry was about. I didn't even know what it was. And then, you see, I was doing what I felt like God was telling me to do. But as he said those kinds of things, I realized he was telling me he wanted me to go deeper. You ever been in a place where you're reading this book and as you're reading it, words start to come off of the page and plant themselves in your head? And not long after that, they just fall right into your heart. You find yourself changed, right? He was calling me deeper. And I knew from reading this Bible that if he was calling me deeper, he may choose to turn my world upside down. And I wasn't real excited about that. You see, I always remember when he asked me to start tithing. Oh man, preacher, you're going to go there again? Well, this really is relevant because I remember when he asked me to start tithing. And you see, it happened in much the same way. I was giving to my church. When we had revivals or special meetings, I even put an extra $1 or $2 in the plate. Right? I mean, I was it. I was doing the right thing. And I didn't hear him, when he said, I want you to start tithing, I didn't hear him say anything about the fact that I was living paycheck to paycheck. I didn't hear him say anything about, can you afford it? I didn't hear any of those words. He said, Ed, it's time for you to start giving me more money. Again, I'm looking around. What? Somebody in the sanctuary there by me to tell me this, because this can't be God. And he said, you see, you're robbing yourself of a blessing. I have more than I want from you. I'm calling you deeper, and I want you to do more for me. But I can't get there until you give me your money. That's what he said. He said, give me a minimum of 10%. Now, I'm not really a big fan of that. If you've been here at all, you know that I don't preach that. So he said, give me a minimum of 10%, and I will bless you accordingly. So, very reluctantly, I did what he said. I went back home and I talked to Barb and I said, we have to start giving a minimum of 10%. She said, praise God, I've been doing that. I'm glad you're on board. So after that, God started blessing. And not did he just start blessing, I said, let's give a little bit more. And so we gave a little bit more than 10%, and God blessed more. And I said, well, maybe we need to give a little bit more. And she said, we can only give so much. And I said, well, we need to give more. And we did, and God kept blessing. And so this idea of giving was really about God blessing, not about me giving.
Amen.
I just thought it was about. So that was a little bit of a side note to this story. So here's the deal. I kept doing what he asked me to do. I kept praying for him to make this call obvious to me. I asked him, make it obvious to my wife, to my children and my family. Make it obvious to the people around our community, the people that I see, the people that know me. Make it obvious. And you'll be very surprised to hear he did just that and more. That's how I ended up here. Because see, over the next 10 years, he showed me what I needed to know so I could be used in other parts of the country. Besides that small town in eastern Ohio. And then he asked me to move. I know, nobody wants to hear this part of the story. We like it where we live. But he asked me to move. And ever since then, every time I've moved to a new place for ministry, I've felt inadequate and frightened about what might happen. Every time. And every time he moved, he blessed me. Every time I said, yes, God, I'll go where you send me. I'll do what you ask. I'll give you everything. He's blessed me. More and more and more. I guess that means that I really didn't have any more reason to be afraid than when Elijah did when he ran and hid from Jezebel. It's kind of the same thing. Maybe none of us have a reason to live in anxiety and fear. Maybe that's not where we're supposed to be. Maybe we're being called to live in his blessing and unconditional love. I know this for sure. If you will put your trust in him alone, meaning Jesus Christ, and quit holding things back from him, meaning your money and your time and those gifts that he keeps on giving you, if you quit holding those back, then he will bless you beyond your imagination, and you will find yourself living in strength and truth rather than struggling through life of want and fear. Let me move on. The other thing I want us to see isn't really a miracle that Elijah performed. It's more like a blessing God gave him. That's what we're talking about today, actually, is blessings. You see, after he humiliated those prophets on Mount Carmel and killed them all, and that negative switch happened, it made him a scared man who was running for his life. But then, there was another switch that I really want you to see this morning. See, Elijah's life did not end in fear and weakness. It didn't end in fear and weakness. He went through it, and he gave into his fear for a little while, but then he found himself alone with God. Have you ever been alone with God? If you haven't, you need to be. Because that's where you really find out who you are. He found himself alone with God. And let me read to you a little about what happened next. It's in chapter 19. I'm going to read verses 11 through 16. I'm in the New Living Translation if you're trying to figure that out. It says, "Go out and stand before me on the mountain," the Lord told him. And Elijah stood there. The Lord passed by, and a mighty windstorm hit the mountain. It was such a terrible blast that the rocks were torn loose. But the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind, there was an incredible earthquake. But the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, there was a fire. But the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, there was a sound of a gentle whisper. When Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his cloak and went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. And the voice said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He replied again, "I have zealously served the Lord God Almighty. But the people of Israel have broken their covenant with you, torn down your altars, and killed every one of your prophets. I am the only one left, and now they are trying to kill me." Then the Lord told him, "Go back the same way you came, and travel to the wilderness of Damascus. When you arrive there, anoint Hazael to be king of Aram. Then anoint Jehu, grandson of Nimshi, to be king of Israel. And anoint Elisha, son of Shaphat, from the town of Abel Maholah, to replace you as my prophet." You see, this is a big deal because it changes everything for Elijah. And here's the switch of the day. Elijah is transformed from self-assured servant to a God-assured servant. The Lord doesn't just tell Elijah, "Get over it," like I did my kids. He doesn't just say, "Get over it." He doesn't just give him instructions and sweep his feelings under the rug. The Lord shows Elijah that he is in everything from an all-consuming fire, like the one he saw completely disintegrate the offering on Mount Carmel at the showdown with the prophets of Baal, to a gentle whisper, like the still small voice that we can scarcely hear inside our head. God is in it all. And he's using it to bring people to realization of who he is.
Amen.
He tells Elijah to get up and go. And then he gives him something to do. I noticed that when God tells us to go, he always tells us what he wants us to do. And every time we choose to do as he directs us, we will find ourselves in a great place, doing the things that bring great blessings. We usually get to be part of that blessing that he sends. And even if we don't, we always get to see the blessing he sends.
Amen.
That makes it really worth it. Sometimes, the blessing doesn't have to be on me. I can see somebody else be blessed, and it makes everything right. So, I want you to realize that you might not realize, or you might not be ready, or you might not know that you're in the stage that you're in. You might not know what level of the game you're playing. But if you're willing to let God make the switch, if you're willing to let him flip that switch, he has more for you to do. So as the band returns to the stage today, let me ask you to consider how God may be trying to switch you. Are you holding back? Is He telling you to start tithing your money? Or is He telling you to give more of your time and gifts to His service through the church? Or is He saying something else to you that'll bring a switch in your life and draw you deeper into Him? Whatever it is, let me encourage you. Let God flip the switch today. If you'll let Him, you'll never regret it. These altars are here for you. If you want to come and pray, let me encourage you to come and pray. Will you stand with me?